Hi, everybody. This is Kara and Delight and Cassandra and Damon, your team of training and care coordinator liaison, care coordination support. And we're glad you're here because this is our monthly care coordination info share session. And we can see that one of us use the question box. I'm pretty sure we all know how to use it. Um, we'll, and we have our agenda in the handout section as well. So if you want to download that, you're welcome to. If you can't download it, don't worry. We can send it to you in an email afterwards, and we'll be sending you an email if you attended today, verifying the validity of 1 hour CEH for this session, like we always do. Make sure and keep that email for when you reapply for certification. I'm going to go ahead and show my screen. And let me check and make sure it's showing. All right. As always, put your questions into the question box, and we'll read them and get to them, answer them as we can. We know there's a lot going on, so you know we're happy to address what we can, and if we have other things that we can't address in this session, you know that could happen too. But we can always give resources. All right, so I'm going to move things around so I can see better. Okay, so special topics. First off, we're having we're having proposed waiver amendments happen right now. Our webpage is the best place to go to learn about those, and I can actually click on that link and take us there if we want to see it. We're accepting public comment on proposed waiver amendments until 5 p.m. on Monday, October 9th, 2023. Best thing to do is to send your written comments to Jordan Grant. You're welcome to write them and mail them or drop them off, and you can email to Jordan as well. And you can see the address right there. Let me see if I can jump on this page and have it jump with me. Okay, great, it did. So this is a look at our waivers page, and in the middle, it has, the whole thing has information on it, but you can see the approved waivers there. And in the middle, we have a list of the proposed amendments to the waivers and how we're seeking comment from people affected by them or interested in them. Any stakeholder is welcome to comment. You can learn the details here and what waivers they affect. You may have heard about our proposed changes to ResHab, meaning the introduction of two new kinds of homes, specialized family hab home and specialized group hab home, meant to serve a population who have experience needs for complex supports. And under our waiver types, IDD, APDD, CCMC, and ISW, the introduction of allowing legally responsible individuals to provide paid in-home supports and supported living under specific circumstances. And we did have our waivers and all that good stuff. So, you know, you can also check out this web page at any time. Okay.
So Kara, we got a question about the training videos and wondering if CHs are available for those engagements. And Kat answered it, but your CHs from us are all through the Academy now. Like, this is the one exception. So if you want to if you're looking for CHs, the Academy is your best place. These, you know, it's a really confusing language, so just want to make sure that you're really clear. We're at public input stage where we're getting information before the regs are written, and then after the regs are written, it moves to public comment. So this is actually civic process in real time. So this is the best time for you to say, I don't think this is going to work the way you think it might work if you do it this way, but if you do it that way, it could, and like provide context to like how it could help or guardrails you think are important. This is the time for that, so that when the regulations are written, they consider that, and then you get a second round to go through those regs and be like able to kind of again give more feedback on if it's on track or if it needs more work. So hopefully that gives a little bit of help, kind of context.
Okay, great. I'm just going to make this question box a little bigger so I can see it. Okay, quickly before I get into the next topic here, there's a question about the support plan, the choice page. Under the boxes, I understand that. Marked that a person understands what is written, correct. That the person understands what they're being offered and they're making a choice, really is what it is. So it's under I choose to receive. That's where someone marks just one box, what they choose. Hopefully they're choosing the waiver box because that's a support plan that you're working on. Just one box. So a person, let's say right now reviewers are asking for the person to choose just one for both sections of 4 options. It makes sense for choose to receive to be just one. Well, you know, this is a great question. I've had this question before. A person could choose to receive 2 services if it's in the albeit somewhat rare, or receive institutional care and waiver care if they happen to be transitioning from one to the other. And that's like a handful of people, and I get that. But what I'm getting at is that it should just be honestly what is going on with the person. They're, I don't know, does anybody on my team recall the 4 boxes that are before that we want a person to check only one of those or 4 of those? Or
yeah, so so I get why this is confusing, because there's like a huge list of the rights and responsibilities and acknowledgments on the support plan, and there's like been a lot of question about, do I need to initial each one and each one all the way down? And then you get to the final 4 questions, and the final 4 questions are, I accept waiver services, my support plan, and you're agreeing to the support plan. And then one of the questions is, I do not accept waivers services. And then a third question is, I choose to go to an institution. And I'm really ad-libbing those, but those are the dynamics of them. They're very, if you read them very carefully, their ideas are very different from each other. So you would only select one of those, but this is confusing because you have this whole list of like spots that you're supposed to check off all the way through, and then you get to those final 4s where it's only one. So as you're coaching your families on how to review a plan, right? Because this is their review too. Like, we always kind of work up about the state review, but the person gets their review of the plan and signs it off. I would just make sure that you're clear with them that on those final pages before they get to the signature block, they should read each one of those carefully together. You can read it with them, however best you can support them in engaging with that content. But take your time, encourage them to take their time at it, because that last section, they should only check one of those selections. So I know it, like, as a perpetual checkboxer, like, you checked them all and you initialed them all, and then you get to a section where you don't do that. I get it's tricky.
It's hard. You just keep rolling with it. Yep.
You just want to be done with it.
Right.
You read all the good stuff.
I know. And a client satisfaction survey is still required. Yes. Okay. So there's questions. I think one question came in about what we're presenting on the screen. Care coordination visits and distance delivery. This is just an update of what's new, or newly, implemented. What are the care coordinator contact requirements after November 11th? For ISW, every 6 months, at a minimum, one in-person contact with the person or their representative at least once every 6 months, and one telephone or distance delivery contact in each of the subsequent 5 months. Care coordinators will have 6 months from November 12th to complete the required in-person contact with the person. In-person contacts need to occur in one of the settings where the services are provided. And we did have a question about what if they don't have staff for a particular service that they have, like somebody, doesn't have, they have staff. So are they going to do a contact where the service is provided if it's approved on the plan, but they're not getting it? I'm not sure how you could actually do that if they don't have staff for that service. I think that if you document that they don't have staff for that service and complete the other required visits, the amount of required visits, that would be good. We can check into it to make sure. I'm not sure, how you would make that happen if they're not going to those and they're not getting staff for those at all. But it doesn't reduce your obligations to visit. During the planned year, additional contacts to monitor service delivery include meeting in person with the person in at least 2 service environments, one of which must include meeting with them at their home. So, all right, 2 service environments during the planned year, one of which is at home. Let's check our questions here. I'm finding them. Does staff count as a contact? No, the contact is with the person and or their representative. And we know that the wording of the regulation puts the representative in there along with the person, but that does not mean that you spend an entire year just visiting the representative. You need to see the person. They're in the list of who you can visit because you can visit them, but care coordination needs to include visiting with the person, not just the representative. We need to see the person. That's what care coordination is. Okay, regarding the ISW topic, is it still required for 2 contacts per month because it states 1 in person and 1 additional? For ISW, it's at least 1 in-person contact every 6 months and a contact in each subsequent month. So it's a little different. Okay. I'm just reading through our questions here, see if there's anything I can pick out to answer here. What if we cannot access their home? We've had similar questions along that line. Best thought there is if I don't know why you wouldn't, I mean, I'm not saying I don't know why. I'm just saying, like, I don't know the specifics of what you're thinking about when with that question. But there's just been different questions along that same line. Our best suggestion is that if you cannot access a home, then you should consider utilizing your backup care coordinator to access their home. If you can't get there, physically get there, or if you're uncomfortable going by yourself or something like that. We've had those kinds of, questions in the past. Says it's difficult to drive there. People use 4-wheelers most of the time. Yeah, there isn't a set answer I could give other than the care coordination has to happen, and you do have backup care coordination. So if you can utilize them, to help accomplish this, then that's another way to get it done. Good questions, though. Okay, this might help if I keep going. For recipients of IDD, ALI, APDD, and CCMC, at a minimum, 2 contacts each month with the recipient or their representative. Every 6 months, one of the monthly contacts must be in person, and the remainder may be done by telephone or distance delivery. Okay, so 2 contacts a month with the person or their representative. Every 6 months, one of the monthly contacts must be in person, and the remainder done by telephone or distance delivery. Care
And
coordinators,
these
go
are
ahead.
just the minimums. So these are the minimums, okay,
Minimums,
in
yeah.
order to be in compliance. You may have clients where you have to make additional contacts or have to visit them because you hear from one of the providers that maybe something's going on at the home, and so you want to go check it out yourself to see and make sure their health and safety is, being cared for. So just kind of keep that in mind, that you're going to know your caseload, and sometimes it's a lot more than that. These are the minimums of face to face in person is one every 6 months. So you may have to do more than that, but at a minimum, that's the requirement.
Mm-hmm.
Kara, can you talk more about visiting in different service locations? Because there's some questions about that. So before there was a requirement to monitor delivery of service of all the services at each like different setting. So now what's the requirement?
Say it again.
So before you had to monitor service delivery in each setting. So if someone was going into the home, you go to the home. If they had day hab, you go check on a day hab session, or support employment, you go check out where they're working. What's the requirement now?
Well, it's like it says on the screen, in-person contact must occur in one of the settings where home and community-based waiver services are provided.
So that's a change. That's where people are trying to understand the distinctions. So you're only required to go once, one service.
Right. I'm looking at the questions. Somebody's employment is on base and I'm not approved to go on base. Okay. Well, if they have other services, then you would be meeting this minimum requirement to visit them in a different service. If that's possible, that's a way to meet this. What else? This question's about what is distance delivery. We'll get on to that in just a second. Question says, going forward, can the 6 months be on an actual calendar year cycle? Like if we visit from July 2023 to December 2023, we're going to have to track 11/12 to 5/11 cycle going forward forever. It's hard to split care coordination in the middle of the month when it is monthly service, etc. All right. So our best answer is that you'll have 6 months from November 12th to complete the required in-person contact with the person. It isn't, it doesn't have to be exactly 6 months to the date from that date. What we're wanting to do is give a little bit of flexibility within that 6-month period, and you can pick a date within that to visit the person. We had questions coming in like this about weather. If I get weathered out during certain periods of time, more likely during certain periods of time, how do I space out my visits? That type of question. It's possible to space them out. I mean, it's new, right? I think right now the thing that I could confidently say would be not acceptable would be to if you're visiting somebody 2 times, for once every 6 months, and you visit them on, let's say, June 30th, and call that visit 1, and then July 1 visit 2, because you have 2 visits really close to each other. Yes, it is within 6 months, but that's not the intent of it. The intent of it is to see how the person is doing throughout the year, not to get 2 visits done really fast the way you split it out. I know that's not what we're really thinking about, but it's one of the things that wouldn't be fitting this model. So, but you can space them out.
You could do monthly in-person visits. You don't have to do distance delivery or phone. You could do in-person visits every month, and some people probably prefer that.
Right. You're always welcome to do that. Let's talk about this a little bit more here. We'll talk about distance delivery, lots of questions about that. All right. Question says, for monthly visits, if a client is in residential in Seward and the guardian lives out of state, what do I do? You would be visiting or seeing the client, not the guardian. Questions about telehealth. People don't know how to do telehealth methods. Distance delivery isn't required, so you can still do an in-person contact. Phone calling is also allowed for care coordinators as acceptable for a contact, because we know a lot of people don't know how to do the technology other than a phone. Is the recipient's representative the guardian, or can that be house staff? The representative is considered a legal representative or a power of attorney, somebody who has a decision making, the person or their legal rep.
The staff could help with facilitating a distance delivery visit, like if they help like with the phone so that you could see the person or talk to the person. So you might work with the staff to set up a modality, like to distance deliver through one of the HIPAA platforms. You could do that with staff, but you wouldn't count the contact being with staff. It would be with the person. So you'd either be with the person or with their legal rep.
Correct. For the statement before, the person's is in residential in Seward for a few months, but I, the care coordinator, live in Fairbanks. We do not have visit exceptions anymore. So within 6 months from November 12th, you'll need to do an in-person visit with the client. And then some helpful information about the question about going on base. A care coordinator has shared that the commissary team leader, which would be the employment services place inside on the base there, the commissary team leader can meet you at the gate and escort you through to observe supported employment. And this care coordinator did it last month. So ask for the commissary team leader and they will escort you through. The statement says, I'm thankful we don't have to visit on supported employment. Visiting is uncomfortable as the clients are on the clock. You actually do have to visit on supported employment if that is one of the services the person has. If it's IDD and you choose a different service, then it's just one of the services. So, but I get that. I understand that. Okay, cool. Yeah, thanks for sharing about getting on base. I did not know that. What if they only have one service location, like they're at the ALH? That's okay, and that would be the setting to visit. It would also be their home, so a visit could be their home and their service at the same time. But you cannot replace one visit for the other. It has to be the required number of visits, minimum required. That's still that you're still doing, even if it's to the same place. That's my best thought on that. All right, let's go back to our. Hang on, I'm gonna put a flag on this so I can remember where I was. So don't worry about it, team. If you see a flag, then it's just because I'm marking to myself there. Okay, so let's go down to distance delivery. The questions about that. What is distance delivery? It's a face-to-face interaction between a recipient and a provider using a secure web-based platform that is HIPAA compliant. Does not include the use of a phone without a video component. Care coordination has different requirements for monthly contacts and the use of a phone or distance delivery. So what this is supposed to be telling you, if you're a care coordinator, is that you can use a web-based video chat that's HIPAA compliant. It's a method that doesn't, we don't dictate which to use. but there are several encrypted, Zoom chats and things like that. And don't quote me and say I said you had to use Zoom or anything like that. It's just a format that doesn't allow other people to have access to the interaction. And that's what makes it HIPAA compliant. You can inquire to the actual application or the vendor of those things to find out about that if you're going to use it. For care coordination, we do allow telephone without a video component to be part of distance delivery. Our service providers that are doing the up to 10% of the allowed services by distance are going to be needing to use a video component in their service delivery. All right, but phone calling is still allowed for care coordination. Which platforms are HIPAA compliant? It's up to the provider to make sure that the HIPAA compliance is met for all communication if they're sharing PHI. Some of the virtual real-time conferencing applications do offer encryption. It's up to the provider to get written consent from the person to use distance delivery. It must state whether the method used is encrypted or not. Any platform that is like a stream, like streaming on YouTube or streaming on TikTok or something like that, that allows people who don't have a need to know to see the information, that is not, nobody, it allows people who aren't specifically invited to participate, so it wouldn't be HIPAA compliant. Waiver recipients and or their legal reps need to be informed about the type of connection used during a distance delivery visit, whether it's secured or unsecured. Informed consent does not need to be obtained at every visit if the recipient has previously consented to that specific type of distance delivery. So the person could give you consent to call on the phone and they could do it once and not every single time, or a different method, the different distance delivery method. They have to be given the option to revoke the consent at any time they choose. So if you can document that a person gave consent and that they were aware that they could revoke it, then you don't have to repeat that every time you visit with that person or do a contact with that person in that method. Does somebody want to add?
You got it. We're just kind of monitoring. There's a lot of different thoughts going on. So yeah, keep going. We're collecting it for you.
Yeah, it's cool. So I know a few of us did ask about, do we have to do it every time? So that helps to explain that, no, you don't have to do it every time. Do we need to use a different code for billing for a phone call versus in-person visits? So there is training available through HMS Gainwell that will teach you about what we call place of service codes. That means where the person is when you do the work. All right, so if they're in home or if they're not at home, there are different service codes that you use when you're billing your visit to that person. Or, well, it's actually monthly care coordination. So in that month, whatever kind of visit you did or contact you did with that person, wherever they were is a different modifier code. So my best thought there is to explore MedicaidAlaska.com, their provider training section. There should be training available there, and there is a recording of that training. And I want to say, team, help me verify. I want to say we hosted a training like that and have it on our YouTube. I hope I'm not wrong, but we did talk about placing.
We did, yeah.
It was quite a while ago.
Wow,
I want to say that it was like in
August,
January, maybe a year ago. I can try to search it up. Give me a second to see if I can find it, because it was a conversation out of need. We needed to look into it for you guys.
Yeah, and then if you get stuck and you're going to bill and you want to make sure or something like that, Gainwell still has training. They do have provider training unit. Our counterpart over there is Marilee Reinhardt Daviu, and she's great. So, but anybody on the training unit can answer your questions. So I would say to call or find the provider inquiry email on Gainwell's website. Okay, what else here? What if a person has an OPA guardian who is not responsive? Office of Public Advocacy. File a critical incident report and document your efforts to reach that guardian and how they have failed and the outcome for the person using the CIR process, please. Can we touch on the requirements when it comes to getting visits signed by the recipient or their representative? Question was, do we mean written consent? Visit signatures are not required on a document. We haven't required visit signatures for years. So a signature of the person of a face-to-face visit on a document of some kind is not required. I hope that helps. There is no exception to monthly visits by care coordination. Its question says, did we say there's no exception from face-to-face anymore? What about people out of state or out of travel areas? There is no monthly visit exception anymore because of the reduction of face-to-face visits to once every 6 months. You can schedule visits with services through the agency. That's a helpful tip. Thank you. A couple of comments about people working on base where we can't go. Well, it says we responded. I think we'll have more guidance around it coming up. Care coordinators are providing feedback that they are able to visit their clients who are working on base. They need to contact the team leader at the work site to get them in and have them visit during the work that is on base. That is something that somebody shared, so it's possible to do that. Okay, confused by our response. Monthly care coordination visits, but you said no exception for face-to-face, but that's always been an option. There is no exception to monthly visits. We used to allow an exception for visits due to high costs, which meant that care coordinators were not visiting their folks monthly. But the flexibilities with the new regulations allow for monthly visits to be done via distance delivery. I think it's also good to understand it as contacts. Face-to-face visit once every 6 months, contacts monthly. Okay, contact is by phone or by a distance delivery video chat, something like that. Can it still be a non-secure method so long as they consent? Yes, but it can't be HIPAA exposure. Okay, like I can't say, well, I'm going to meet you streaming on TikTok and talk about your life. You know, that is not. It can be. It needs to be. Oh, let's see. Maybe I'm answering wrong. Maybe that's wrong. Used to be.
So think of it like this. When you set up your method for, if you're going to do distance delivery, you need to have a conversation on how that will happen. And that entails a lot. That means, like, for some of your people, will be like, who's going to help you access this through Zoom? Can you do it yourself? Do you have the equipment to do it? Now, do you have the app to access Zoom on your phone? I have an encrypted Zoom account that I pay extra money for to be able to do it securely. Maybe that isn't something that you guys are having. You're using a free version of Zoom. You're going to need to explain that and tell them that it's not secure. And if they don't want that because they want secure choice, a secure access, then you're going to have to look at another option. They may say, I don't do Zoom at all. Like, I don't do any of that. I don't do any distance delivery. That's not my thing. Distance delivery is then off the table for making contact, and you're going to have to find a different way to connect with them to ensure the continuity of their services and make sure that they're in a safe environment. When you set this up, this is the time you would set up your agreement for those distance delivery contacts. And that may mean getting the representative to sign off on it, and you only have to do it once. So it's Oh, we're kind of going over the rules with you of like contacts, like can it be distance delivery, can it not? Like how often do you have to see the person, be in the same room as them? But the logistics of doing the distance delivery is going to be an added layer to your practice, because you're going to have to figure out those logistics of is staff available to help do that distance delivery connection? Would staff be able to ensure that
Right.
they would be able to have that? Do they have the technology to do it? So,
Yeah,
and
and it's
we don't get into any of that because it's, sorry, Kara, we don't
okay.
get into that because it gets into a lot of your business practices. Like what
Right.
licenses do you have? So you have your own HIPAA requirements that you put together as part of certification. You have your own HIPAA notices to your clients. This is a part of that practice. If you're not going to be using a secure way of doing these, it is not something that you will have to kind of write that, you will have to write it out, because it is a big deal that they're not having a secured interface. They have to understand that their information could be compromised. And that is a big conversation that I would encourage you to take really seriously, because we're working with vulnerable people that are getting engaged in these like technology, like people are interfacing with them with technology. This is a really important point for you as their care coordinator to explain that it is a big deal, that their information is really important. And so I would really encourage you to make sure it's encrypted, because that's the safest way, and it's a good way to model for this person that your information is really important. If
Right.
Yeah, go ahead, Kara. Like,
Yeah, I was
does
gonna
that help?
say,
I don't know. I'm rambling here. I'm all fired
yeah,
up about
right. It's confusing. It's confusing for us too. My best understanding of this, though, is that I was wrong, that we have to use a HIPAA compliant method. We have to use a HIPAA compliant platform. I know it's confusing because over COVID, people were allowed to use
it.
non-HIPAA
Oh,
compliant ones, but now, I mean, you're still allowed now because COVID's like we're not done with the flexibilities until the 11th of November, right? So after November 11th, so right now it's okay, but after November 11th, folks are going to have to get themselves a HIPAA compliant Zoom or a HIPAA compliant other chat, or verify that whatever they're using has an encryption on it in order to be able to continue using it to do video component video chat stuff with people. That's my
so
understanding.
okay, reframe it then. So everything that I just said, 80% of that was accurate, but the 20% I got wrong was really wrong.
Me too.
So,
Me too.
So in
so
No,
other words, if push
it's
come to shove,
confusing.
go visit your client.
thanks, Cassandra.
Yeah.
That's really the message. Just see your people and see them. I had a provider say, Zoom can't capture smell. And I was like, that is a really, really accurate point.
Hmm.
Like you need to be able to be monitoring people's health. So to acknowledge what I
Hmm.
said before, again, it's really important about people's private health information, encouraging our people that their information is private. If you're not able to get encrypted platforms, that's something that means that distance delivery may not be an option for you. And I think that it's fair that you let us know that, that it's not working, because we'll have to evaluate it. That's a big part of this. This is a new procedure. So as you go through this, as we transition to this new way of doing contacts, it's okay for you to come to office training hours and touch base with us, touch base with Kat, and say, this isn't working, or it is, because it's new. Okay, the big thing that we really need to keep going is we need you to make sure our Alaskans are safe and that their services are being delivered. That is what we need. That's like, so do it by phone call, do it by encrypted encrypted Zoom or Google or whatever encryption service you can do, telemodality that you can do, or see them in person. You know, you do have a lot, but we recognize there's a lot of logistics to this transition and making sure that it's going to work.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we've answered a few more. There's a question about for face-to-face component. So we are not allowing face-to-face visits to be replaced by a distance delivery contact with a video component. Face-to-face means face-to-face. And there aren't visit exceptions anymore because there aren't as many visits required. It's once every 6 months face-to-face with the person. We realize the regulation says or their representative, but that doesn't mean that we just visit a representative throughout the plan year and never see the person. We have to see the person. You can also contact their representative. Let's see. A few of us have asked if we have to have the person sign your visit notes. There is no requirement to have a person sign your visit notes. You can if you want. You can ask them to sign, but it is not in our regulation or conditions of participation to require a person to sign the visit note. Okay. Right. A few of us asked that. How do I find out if I'm being considered for a different renewal date for variable certification? Check with certification. hss.dsds.certification@alaska.gov. You still need to submit your application for certification regardless. You still submit the application. Let's see, I may not get to all these. Continue to put them in, you know, keep on putting the questions in. If we don't get to all of them, that's okay too. Comment says there's a requirement for signatures with audit. Okay, that's good to know. I haven't heard that before, that audit requires their home visits or face-to-face visits to be signed by the person. We'll have to look into that. We'll have to bring that to our leadership team and see, you know, see about how we can support that best. When does it start? November 12th. Can a contact with a rep be through email? That is a communication with them. It's not a contact. Encryption and HIPAA compliant are not always the same thing. Totally true. I could have the most HIPAA compliant thing and use it in a non-HIPAA compliant way. It's up to people, really. I get that. A phone call is not encrypted. We realize that. It doesn't have to be a video conference. If we use a video conference, the method you use, the platform you use needs to be HIPAA compliant. A phone call itself, there isn't the same kind of requirement around that. We just understand that it's just the person on the phone, and that's good enough. Reading questions. If the person calls you or they call you via Zoom, the provider agency calls on you if you're not initiating the visit. Best answer there is, what if you're not initiating it? The client calls you. You know, my best answer there is that these are talking about visits that you initiate as the care coordinator in your role of the care coordinator. The person calls you, then they're just reaching out to you. It's a communication with you. Can we telephone our clients during the time frame in between face-to-face visits? Yes, you can. I'm just answering it in writing here. All right, and so a lot of us are frustrated, and I get that. We are working on updated FAQs. So these are really good questions to help us develop that or continue to develop that. And we'll be able to distribute those because they'll be vetted through our teams. Okay. It says an email with the Guardian. Email with Guardian, again, if I'm going by the regulation, I'm going to say a phone call with the Guardian is what the regulation is looking for. So if you use email to make an appointment to phone call somebody, you know, it's the difference between communicating via email and a visit, okay, or a contact.
And again, we have like 13 minutes left, so we do appreciate questions and some comments that are put in. We will bring this back to our leadership team, and we are working on the FAQs. They should be done soon. I know the November date is coming up, so we are working on getting those FAQs revised. We just went through the stakeholder engagement, so it's been busy last couple of weeks for everybody. So if you guys have some good questions, keep putting them in. If we don't get to them, we certainly will go through them after. Make sure that we
definitely
answer them in FAQs.
Yeah, and the purpose of email communication is to get information. All right, we're not advocating to just send somebody an email and not get any response from them and call that a contact. That I think we understand that that's not not a contact. But some of us are writing in that OPA guardians don't answer their phone; they only respond to emails and things like that. So let us get with our leadership about particular details like that and see what the viewpoint is. I can definitely understand these things. You know, it's not ununderstandable that that's what you face. And so also to loop it in with audit, you know, if people are not passing audit because a person is not signing their visit notes, yet we don't require visit notes. It's not possible for me to break that down right now here today. When it comes to audits, there's so much going on. It's usually not just one thing that stops, you know, the allocation of approval for visit requirements in an audit. It's usually a bunch of different things. So I'm sort of not interested in, well, not interested, I'm interested in everything, but I don't want to give the wrong impression that, you know, all of a sudden if you get people signing your visit notes, then, you know, you'll pass audit every time. It's usually not just based on one thing, it's usually based on a bunch of things. But I can tell you that our regs don't require it. So that part of it we can look into. And if that's what is something that people are getting hung up on, then, you know, we have teams that can address that. So keep on putting them in. We'll do our best to get clarification out. Again, this is a monumental amount of different changes and information coming out. So, you know, oftentimes we have to vet it through and give, you know, the best case scenario answers when we're interacting. Some things we can definitely put our hands on, and other things, well, you know, if we're emailing a guardian because that's the way they want to communicate, and it's a OPA guardian or something like that, and we're not able to phone call them or use the other methods that were talked about in terms of defining contacts, then what is that? You know, does this count an in-depth email exchange, or is it simply communication about the person and their circumstances that's expected as part of care coordination? Usually my best answer based on what it says on regs, which is what we have to go by, is that it's going to be phone calls or video chat. You know, that's why we're leaning on phone calls. And I get what you're facing, but we have to get more information before we can verify that you would or wouldn't be able to abandon phone calls when interacting with a representative and go to just email only. I'm not sure that I could say that as an affirmative right now today. But as some reminders, we do have our care coordinator support office hours that we do offer by Zoom. Provider support office hours as well. All of our Zooms, by the way, are encrypted accounts. So we can use a breakout room to assist you with a, if you need to share a PHI. Usually we have several team members available to help you. So we can sort of try to unpack these things when you bring us specific cases. We're happy to support you with that. We do have a YouTube channel with our training, so you could explore it about the place of service codes. You could probably search it for place of service codes and find the video. And we have a new channel for Policies YouTube, which hosts the recent webinars that we did about adult host home and the LRI allowing LRIs to provide specific waiver services. And their webinars are on the new policy YouTube channel, so you can check that out. And of course, we have our training academy, sdstraining.ethinksites.com, which is where we're doing all of our training, with the exception of this one. We do give you credit for this in an email. And eventually we'll migrate, we'll come up with a way to run this through our academy as well. But it's a transition. And we have a lot of content that we're working on to include in our academy. So as time goes on, look for more. And we appreciate your participation. A couple other questions. We still have a few minutes. I'm down at the end. Why don't you allow an open forum to have open discussions with SDS? We do our best to reach out and have a bridge of communication. Mostly when we have discussions, it'll be in the form of stakeholder engagement and then public comment. You're always welcome to contact our policy team, for a discussion about a particular topic. And our leadership team is pretty responsive about those things too. So we do follow our, requirements for engagement with people for our regs and different initiatives that we bring about. Question says, does leaving a detailed voicemail for Office of Public Advocacy count? In general, leaving a voicemail for somebody, I think it's part of doing care coordination, but I'm not sure that it counts as a contact because there's not an interaction there. It's not like a back and forth. Comment says a contact should include email with their legal reps. Often these include other team members and often have a lot of detailed info and it's a written record. Yeah, as long as it's info for people who have a need to know, and it's for need to know for people to do business for that person. I understand that is your standpoint, that should also count as a contact. Okay. Audits shouldn't address it. We remove the signature part. Yep, I get it. We'll look into that. Isn't text allowed as a contact? How is email any different? So as you can see, it's really like kind of a gray area, I'm not sure that we look at text in the same way. Text is more of a quick, informal exchange where, unless you're using, I've certainly gotten text style, telehealth visits using a particular platform that accepts text, that informs me that it's encrypted and things like that. My best answer right now is that you could use a text message to set up a phone call or something like that. I'm not prepared to call it as equivalent to a contact right now today. And looking at our regs and things like that. If you look at our regs and what it says is a contact, it spells out what is a contact. So I can't really say that it includes other things as well. people do prefer email contact. Yes, I can understand that. And you know, there's nothing stopping you from emailing people as much as they need or like or want. You know, you can explain to them that as your care coordinator, I'm going to give you a phone call too. You know, it's kind of, you know, people are in this to, and they need to understand that that's what you're there doing and that's what you're there to do. So I don't think there's anything wrong with emailing people and contacting, but do we slide that under care coordinator contacts? I'm not sure right now. Okay, people don't have the physical ability to sign. Yeah, that was a big deal when signatures were required, is that people didn't have the physical ability to sign, like they were a baby or somebody else that couldn't sign, you know. So I think you can understand that all these rules are about making sure that care coordination is being done, and how do you prove out to that, and how do you say, you know, you've been with that person, how do you document that, how do we tell in an audit and things like that. It's pretty hard to split out these different things and talk about, you know, what is acceptable and what isn't acceptable, you know, when you have regulations that spell out what's acceptable, and it doesn't say, you know, a conglomeration of email contacts can also suffice. It doesn't say that, you know, but we can definitely bring this forth to teams and help create better understanding. So yeah, team, do you want to add anything?
No, and I understand everybody's frustration that the communication perhaps hasn't been super clear, but you guys can understand where we're coming from. We have the regulations to go by and nothing else. So unless we get specific questions, and since the FAQs came out, I haven't gotten any questions about emails or text messages. This is really the first time in a while that there's been questions about the types of contacts that are allowed. You know, we're going to bring those back to the team, but we can't think of all the questions that could come up before they come up. So I appreciate the feedback. I think we all appreciate the feedback and the questions and the concerns you guys have. And this is a great time because we are working on revising the FAQs and making sure they are more updated. So I think we're going to be able to include all of that information in there. So if you don't have enough time to add more questions, feel free to email us. But I understand the frustration, and you could see that we are just as confused in some of these things as you guys are, because this is not exactly old news to us. This is pretty new to us too.
Yeah. Again, you know, you can definitely write to people, you can email people. It's just that emails aren't listed as a form of contact under the contacts, which would comprise a billable monthly unit. So there's not much I can do to be more clear than that. You know, I'm not saying it isn't. We can definitely bring it forth, but we do have a list of formats of outreach that are in the regulation that comprise the contact. So email and text is not on that list. Go ahead.
And as all of you know, before the pandemic happened, we had a way of having contact. So, I mean, just think about that is what we're basically going back to. But we allowed distant delivery to come in. So we still want you to be able to lay eyes on your clients and to be able to hear their voices. Going by a text message, anyone can text. And I know that sounds crazy, but it's true. So you being who you are as their care coordinator, at times you do want to have your eyes on them at least once a month. So whether you hear their voice or see them, that is all we're trying to say. We're not trying to make it hard for you to communicate with your clients. We're just trying to put some great guidelines in place as SDS so that you could continue to serve your clients as you did before the pandemic.
Okay, so it's coming up on 3. And so we'll go ahead and close our session. We'll send you an email with a link to our recording once it's ready. Give us some time to get it ready because it does take a while to, you know, get the get the recording done and posted. And we'll send you an email that says that you participated today for 1 hour CEH. All right, and thanks for all of your ideas and concerns. We greatly appreciate them. And we'll be able to work with these questions and concerns over the time it takes to put our FAQs together. And we appreciate you. So thanks again, everybody. And we'll see you next month, and hopefully sooner before that, in one of our sessions. You can come to our support office hours for care coordinators or all provider, which of course the care coordinator is welcome to that as well. And we're showing the addresses here. Okay, thanks again, everybody. Goodbye for now.